Hello everyone, welcome to Scott Reviews Things in 4.5 minutes. And what am I talking about this time? I'm talking about the 1983 novel Black Christmas. And I just want you to know that this is not a novelization of the movie. This is its own thing. It's a book set in 1983 about a small town where these teenage girls are getting murdered. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. I don't know how many of you actually have this book or are looking forward to this book, but I'm not going to spoil anything in this book. I'm just going to tell you what I thought, and if you find it, pick it up if you want. The one thing I really liked about this was the protagonist. The protagonist is a sheriff in a small town, and he is a very, very flawed protagonist. You can tell, he has a whole bunch of problems before these murders start. And we see these problems and we hear about these problems, and then the murders start, and then the pressure from the murders on top of all what he's dealing with at that point, you can really, really sense like a pressure cooker in this man, and that things are going to explode if something doesn't change. I really, really enjoy stories where the protagonist is not a Captain America, square jaw kind of guy. He's described as pudgy and balding. It's very, very realistic, and I really, really like that. I also like the fact that this is set up as, when you read this book, it feels like an 80s slasher movie. You get that feel. It takes you back. So this was written in, I guess, the form of the 80s, all the horror movies that were coming out at the time. So it has an 80s slasher feel, and for me, that's nostalgic, and that's something that I really enjoyed. The pacing of the book is good. It's not a incredibly intricate read, which means you can put the book down if you have to, you got a couple of days and you pick the book back up. You really don't have to go back and find out, well, who was this and who was that? It's a pretty straightforward book. And I'm not saying that's great for every book, but for this one, it's a very, very casual read, something that you can knock out, in a couple of days, or you can just spread it out over a week. It doesn't really matter. You still get the same gist of the book. Now, there are a lot of things that I didn't really like about the book. One is that there are a ton of red herrings in this book, more than we need. In fact, one red herring, we actually, hear his inner thoughts throughout the book, which is not needed because he's not the killer. And I know we have all these red herrings put in there to throw us off, but the reason we don't need all these red herrings is pretty much in the middle of the book, you can figure out who the murderer is. So once you know who the murderer is, all these other red herrings don't mean a thing, because they're not going to amount to anything. So he didn't do a very good job of covering up who the actual killer was. And so all these other red herrings are irrelevant at this point. We also have the main character. He's a flawed character, but there's points in there where he's dumb, where he doesn't need to be dumb. There's an obvious red herring. There's an obvious suspect in here, and for some reason he ignores this suspect. No reason at all. He ignores it until something happens where he has to address it. That thing should have been, if this was an actual police officer in an actual investigation, something that would have been taken care of long ago. Also, when we find out who the killer is, once we find out who the killer is, it's hard to believe some of the stuff that they did during the book. Once you've read the murders and how they happened, once you find out who that person is, it's like, I don't really think they could have pulled that off. And also, and the finale of the book, I want to talk about the finale. This had the point of being a great finale that left you just sad and hurting inside. And I really wished it would have ended that way, but it doesn't. It goes on for like 2 or 3 more pages, and those 2 or 3 more pages just